And we've had a first glimpse inside what will be the world's biggest airport terminal.
In the quiet light before sunrise, a stretch of untouched plains in southern Bhutan begins to reveal a transformation that will redefine the nation's future. Here, far from the mountain valleys that once dictated every journey, Bhutan prepares a new gateway whose purpose reaches beyond travel, carrying implications that extend deep into the region's shifting landscape. The geography that shapes every decision. Bhutan's landscape rises in steep ancient folds that have shaped its identity for centuries, creating a nation where mountains are not only physical boundaries, but quiet architects of policy, culture, and movement. The Himalayas dominate its northern frontier with a severity that restricts large-scale construction and renders many routes seasonal, while the southern plains open gently toward India, forming the country's most dependable corridor for trade, supplies, and diplomatic access. These contrasting terrains influence every strategic calculation Bhutan makes, because geography in this region is never neutral. It is a force that determines which alliances flourish and which ideas remain impossible. For decades, the nation has relied on narrow valley roads, high-altitude passes, and a single international airport perched between mountain ridges, each choice reinforcing a pattern of limited connectivity that preserved Bhutan's isolation as much as it hindered its growth. The delicate balance between protection and progress has long defined the Bhutanese approach to infrastructure, yet the world around it continues to evolve in ways that make this balance increasingly difficult to sustain. As pressure builds from rising tourism demand, regional competition, and shifting geopolitics, Bhutan confronts a moment where its geography no longer simply shapes decisions, but demands new ones. A feat of aviation that became a limitation. Paro Airport has long embodied the extraordinary interplay between Bhutan's geography and its ambitions, because its position in a narrow valley forces every aircraft to approach through a winding path that demands exceptional precision from pilots trained specifically for this terrain. The runway's elevation reduces engine performance and lift, while surrounding ridges impose strict approach angles that leave almost no margin for error during periods of shifting winds or rapidly changing visibility. These conditions create an experience that many travelers describe with awe, yet the same dramatic qualities that inspire admiration impose weighty constraints on Bhutan's development. Airlines cannot operate larger, wide-body aircraft at Paro because the combination of limited runway length, thin mountain air, and safety requirements severely narrows the range of viable aircraft types. This limitation forces Bhutan to depend on smaller fleets, higher operating costs, and routes that must be chosen carefully to avoid weather disruptions that can ground flights with little warning. Expansion is essentially impossible, as the valley walls restrict any significant extension of the runway or construction of parallel infrastructure needed for higher passenger volumes or modern cargo operations. As Bhutan looks toward a more interconnected future, these constraints no longer appear as benign features of a unique airport, but as increasingly rigid barriers that prevent the country from diversifying its economy, scaling tourism sustainably, or responding to regional shifts in aviation. The recognition of this structural ceiling pushes attention southward, toward open land that offers possibilities Paro can never provide, the Southern Gateway and its hidden strategic logic. The decision to build Bhutan's largest airport in Gelephu begins with an environment that differs sharply from the rugged landscapes that define the nation's interior, because the southern plains offer broad, stable terrain that eliminates the altitude and visibility challenges restricting Paro. At roughly 250 meters above sea level, aircraft engines generate greater thrust. Runway lengths become more flexible, and approach paths can be designed with safety margins that match international standards, creating conditions suitable for modern, wide-body aircraft and consistent year-round operations. This shift alone marks a profound change for a country accustomed to working within natural limitations imposed by its mountains. Gelephu's geographic position adds another layer of strategic clarity, since it rests only a short distance from the Indian border, facing one of India's fastest-growing regions and its most reliable gateway for Bhutan's imports, exports, and energy flows. Unlike the contested northern frontier with China, the southern boundary has remained stable for decades, allowing Bhutan to anchor its economic future in a region where cooperation, rather than tension, shapes cross-border infrastructure projects. This stability provides a foundation for long-term planning that extends far beyond aviation, linking Bhutan to wider regional development corridors that are already reshaping northeastern South Asia. The airport's specifications reflect its intended role as more than a transport upgrade because a 3-kilometer runway, advanced landing systems, and plans for scalable terminal infrastructure signal Bhutan's intention to create a full international gateway capable of supporting tourism, trade, and investment at volumes previously unimaginable. The site's openness also allows expansion without the engineering gymnastics required in mountainous terrain, giving Bhutan room to adjust capacity as demand evolves. As this vision takes shape, Galefu emerges not only as a southern alternative to Paro, but as a deliberate realignment of Bhutan's economic gravity, preparing the country to participate in a regional network that is growing faster than any airport in the mountains could ever serve, the regional web. To understand the full significance of Galefu Airport, it is essential to view it within the larger transformation unfolding just across the border, where India is reshaping Assam into a logistics and industrial corridor that will redefine connectivity across northeastern South Asia. Massive highway upgrades, multimodal cargo hubs, and new industrial zones are under construction, forming a network designed to link the region more efficiently to Bangladesh's ports and eventually to broader trade routes extending towards Southeast Asia. One of the most ambitious segments of this development passes less than 80 kilometers from Galefu, creating a rare moment in which Bhutan's new airport aligns directly with a regional economic spine projected to handle hundreds of millions of tons of cargo annually by 2040. This proximity is more than a geographical coincidence because it positions Galefu as the closest international aviation entry point to a corridor that India envisions as a long-term growth engine. While Guwahati and Bagdogra remain dominant hubs for high-volume passenger traffic, their scale does not diminish the unique role that Galefu could play as a specialized gateway for high-value tourism, fast turnaround cargo, and cross-border partnerships that benefit from Bhutan's stability and regulatory clarity. Instead of competing with India's larger airports, Galefu can complement them by offering an alternative that integrates smoothly with road and rail links, leading into one of the most rapidly developing regions of the subcontinent. Bhutan's southern placement of its largest airport therefore becomes a strategic alignment with evolving regional realities, rather than an isolated national project. As India expands infrastructure toward its northeastern frontier, Bhutan positions itself not on the periphery, but at a meaningful junction where new flows of goods, travelers, and investment could converge. This moment sets the stage for an even more ambitious vision that stretches beyond aviation and into urban transformation. Mindfulness City. Galefu's airport is only the beginning of a far larger transformation because the surrounding region has been designated as the site of Bhutan's proposed Mindfulness City, a special administrative region envisioned as a model for development that blends economic ambition with cultural and environmental principles. This vision covers more than 2,000 square kilometers, making it one of the most expansive planning projects ever attempted by a country of Bhutan's size. The concept relies on sustainable urban design shaped by low-rise architecture, timber construction inspired by Bhutanese traditions, and spatial layouts that prioritize walkability, ecological restoration, and public well-being. These choices are not aesthetic flourishes. They represent Bhutan's attempt to build modern prosperity without sacrificing the values embedded in its philosophy of gross national happiness. The airport functions as the primary doorway through which residents, investors, researchers, and visitors will enter this emerging city, meaning that its capacity to accommodate larger aircraft and all-weather operations becomes essential to the city's long-term viability. Mindfulness City aims to attract technology firms, educational institutions, and foreign partnerships under carefully regulated investment rules, creating a controlled environment where innovation aligns with cultural preservation rather than replacing it. Long-term projections suggest the region could eventually host up to 1 million residents, an unprecedented scale that requires a dependable international gateway from the beginning. By linking the airport's capabilities with the city's aspirations, Bhutan is crafting a development model that extends beyond economic expansion into the realm of identity, signaling that modernization need not erase heritage, but can instead evolve through deliberate, values-driven choices. The weight of ambition. Building an airport in Bhutan's southern plains introduces challenges that extend far beyond runway design, because this region sits within a high seismic zone, where the ground can shift with little warning, requiring engineers to develop foundations capable of absorbing horizontal and vertical forces without compromising structural integrity. The monsoon season adds another layer of complexity, as annual rainfall in southern Bhutan can reach levels that test drainage networks, flood control systems, and soil stabilization measures essential for keeping the runway operational during prolonged storms. These environmental pressures demand solutions grounded in long-term resilience rather than temporary mitigation, since infrastructure of this scale must endure for decades in conditions that can change rapidly from one season to the next. Economic uncertainties further complicate the project, because Galefu's success relies on sustained airline interest, rising tourism flows, and regulatory frameworks that encourage investment without undermining cultural protections. Competition from nearby Indian airports introduces additional pressure, as travelers and carriers may favor established hubs unless Galefu demonstrates consistent reliability and unique advantages. Geopolitical conditions in the Himalayan region also influence planning decisions, especially as Bhutan balances the stability of its southern border with unresolved negotiations in the north. Together, these factors form a landscape where ambition and vulnerability must coexist through careful, forward-looking choices. Bhutan's new southern gateway rises from quiet plains, yet its influence may ripple across the region for decades. As Galefu's vision unfolds, its choices could reshape how nations connect and grow. Stay curious about this transformation and follow our channel as we explore the forces reshaping our world.